A very warm welcome to the 28th episode of the podcast of the World Wind Energy Association, The World of Wind Power. My name is Stefan Gsänger, and it's my pleasure to welcome you today and to welcome our guest from Italy. Italy, one of the largest European countries at the Mediterranean Sea, and we're very much looking forward to hearing about the Italian wind power market. And it's my great pleasure to welcome for this one of the best guests I could have for it. It is Davide Astiaso Garcia, who is the Secretary General of the Italian Wind Energy Association. And I do understand also a professor at the university, so also working as a scientist. Welcome, Davide.
Welcome and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, Davide, I've already mentioned just roughly um, the role that you have, but maybe you want to introduce yourself. How have you come to this area of wind energy, and what are you actually doing in your role as working for the association and as a scientist?
Yeah, I worked with the ANEV, the Italian Wind Energy Association, since around 15 years. I'm the Secretary General there, and at the same time, I'm full professor of energy systems at Sapienza University of Rome. In that role, I mainly work as researcher in many different areas of energy transition, smart energy systems, renewable energy technologies, storages, so different disciplines that are all of them have a main role in this a very key period that we are living for decarbonizing our society.
Yes, indeed. So I do understand you have the technical backgrounds. You're working as a scientist. It's engineering. I think that's the where you
Yeah,
work.
I applied physics, the energy side, the sector of my research field.
Okay. So that's the more kind of the technical side, but as the association,
Yeah.
we worked together closely in the past. Also, for example, we hosted the World Wind Energy Conference together, and that was more political. So the association is doing what associations usually do, kind of lobbying, supporting
Yeah,
policies.
in ANEV we have almost 120 companies, 120 members that deal with wind energy business in our country and not only in our country. So the association play a significant role for for fostering this the energy business, the wind energy business in Italy, speaking with the institution, having some roundtables with the policymakers, with the main decisions at any scale, from the national one, to the government, to the ministries, to the TSO or the GSE, the
Hmm.
Authority for the Energy, and any other player that plays a role in the wind energy sector.
Excellent. So you must have a very good overview of what is happening in the energy market in Italy. Maybe you can describe a little bit how is the structure of the energy market, power market, of course, in particular, but energy in Italy. I think everybody or many people will know Italy is not blessed with fossil resources, but certainly blessed with sunshine, and obviously there's also wind. But what is at the moment, what are the main components of the energy system in Italy?
Yeah, that's true what you said. We have sun, we have wind, and I will send you some, I will tell you some information about that. But we still have a very important dependence from fossil fuels, mainly from natural gas, that still dominates our energy system. We are, of course, in the middle of a transition. We are, the coal is disappearing in Italy, but renewables still not cover the percentage that could be covered by considering the potentialities of our country. So we have renewables covered around 40% of Italy's electricity consumption.
Mhm.
But looking at the penetration, the overall penetration of renewables, of course, is much more lower. The wind energy in particular, we have around 13 gigawatt of wind power installed in our country and more than 40 gigawatt of solar energy.
Oh, yeah.
So that's more or less the situation. These are the main two technologies considering the potentialities in Italy. But looking at the energy prices, for example, if we had a higher percentage of renewables, the energy price for Italy will, for our bills, for our citizens will be much lower. That's, for example, looking at what happened after the war in Iran, looking at the energy prices in Italy and the energy prices in other countries that went down much more significantly than in Italy, for example, in Spain or in other European countries
Mhm.
where the renewable share is higher, around 60% instead of 40.
I was just about to ask how the current situation now with Iran, the skyrocketing oil prices are affecting Italy. You've mentioned already there's still a quite high degree of gas, but oil, that's something else. Probably there's many cars still using gasoline, diesel as well.
Yeah, our mobility system is still dominates by internal combustion engines. So that's one of the point, and the other one is mainly the thermal sector that is still not decarbonized. So we need electrification of the mobility, and we need electrification of the heating systems for increasing the percentage of renewables.
Mhm. So I think that direction is quite clear. Now, when we look at the development, I just also had a look at, of course, at the recent developments of the Italian market, wind power. There was always kind of, it's, I would say in Europe, a medium-sized market, a couple of hundred megawatt installed every year. When did this start? Is there what's the kind of the history of wind energy in Italy? When did it start modern wind power? And do you also have these traditional windmills in Italy that I think many people know from the Netherlands, especially?
Yeah, we had some of them. The wind energies that have been used in Italy since many years, and also the new wind turbine generators. We had a significant know-how in our country. We have a lot of companies that work in this sector since many years. To give you some numbers, at the beginning, at the 2000, in the year 2026 years ago, we had around 40 megawatt of installed wind capacity. After 10 years, in 2010, we had more than 5 gigawatts.
Hmm.
Then, in the first years of this decade, from 2011 2012, we had a faster increase of the wind energy installation until the second half of the decades between 2015 and 2020, where we have a slowdown of the installation mainly due to bureaucratic issues. So
Hmm.
now we moved from 5 gigawatt in 2010 until 13 gigawatt in 2025. Then we have the possibilities to we have to reach the 2030 targets. So this 13 gigawatt has to double more or less to reach 26, 28 gigawatt of wind energy by 2030. So we have to hurry up to speed up the procedures in the next year in order to try to achieve um, the mm, the national integrated energy and climate plan of our country.
Hmm. Let's go soon back to you've already spoken a little bit now about the prospects and what the problems are, but before that, let's have a look at what are the main actors in the Italian market. Who are the investors that are playing a role? I mean, I know that there is some even community-driven organizations, but probably maybe that's more in solar energy. Who are playing? I mean, who are your members as an association?
Yeah, we had in our association mainly all of the main players. Of course, Enel Green Power is the Italian largest renewable developer. We have ERG, that is the major Italian wind operator. Edison is a utility scale renewable investors, very important. RWE, German energy group that is active in Italy, Renezia, and many other players that are working in offshore wind, in developing new wind projects in our seas. Alerion, EDP, Renewables, Sorginia, many others, not to mention the supplier of technologies. The main one are, of course, Vestas, Siemens Gamesa, Nordex, Enercon, all of them are key players and they all play key roles in our association.
Now, you've mentioned already there is some offshore development as well. According to the official statistics, and I think it's still not playing a big role in installed capacity. But would you like to explain what are the prospects of the offshore segment in Italy?
The prospects is quite promising looking at the potentialities of our seas that are mainly with floating
Mm.
technologies. We have also some important projects about of bottom fixed in the Adriatic Sea. But looking at the bathymetries of our seas, our main potentialities are in the far away from the coast and with deeper seas and floating technologies. We have a lot of a huge number of megawatt or gigawatt of grid connection requests of under development projects that are trying to get the environmental impact assessment. Some of them already got it, and they are moving to get the unique authorization. On the other hand, we have seen that the so-called DM-FAIR2, that is the Italian decree for opening the auctions for the offshore wind, is published, is operative, but we still have not seen any auction for offshore wind. So
Mm.
also in the offshore wind, there are some barriers that do not help um, the increase of the sector and the development of the sector as it could be.
Now, you've already mentioned some regions which some people may know. Adriatic Sea, that's what you said there could be some offshore wind farms. I guess that the maybe floating or that with the deeper sea maybe is more on the western side. But when you look at Italy as such, I do understand that there's more wind energy at the moment in the south and in the north. Is that correct? And what are the prospects? Because I do understand that the many industries are also more in the north. So is that still the case? Are there any changes?
Are you speaking on onshore and offshore or
Onshore and
both?
offshore, both. I mean, just
Yeah,
is the
yeah,
the
obviously,
demand
yeah.
is at a different place when than the wind farms?
Yeah, the main areas for offshore wind with more projects under development are, yes, in part the Adriatic Seas,
Mhm.
the waters of Sicily and, and Sardinia, and or some projects also in the Tyrrhenian Seas. We have some projects in Lazio, in Calabria, so in the center and the south of Italy. As regards onshore wind, of course, the main potentialities are in the central and southern region also in that case. So the islands, the main islands, the Apulia and the Campania, all the regions where we already have the higher number of wind turbine installed, but
Mhm.
also the potentialities are still not covered in these regions.
Mhm. I understand. So there's still a lot of potential. That's what you said. And doubling within that would be in 3, 4 years is of course substantial. Now, when you look at the regulatory side and then maybe talk a bit about the barriers that are there, you've already mentioned there is bureaucracy. You said that there are maybe too many rules. But first, what is the main incentive? Do you have something like auctions in Italy? What is kind of the basis for the investment?
Yeah, the main barriers currently are the permitting mainly remains the main bottlenecks because the authorization delays are still among the slowest in Europe. We are around 5 or 6 years for getting a unique authorization, while the European Commission fixed the 2 years for this process. So this can cause, in some cases, problems with investors and with achieving the targets that we mentioned before. Then we in the past we had some more grid limitations that now have been mainly solved by our TSO Terna. So before we have some grid limitation in some cases where we have main curtailment, congestions, and
Mm.
connection risks. And also the cost of the technologies. We had some periods where the wind turbines were more expensive than now, and the price were higher. Now the wind energy is competitive in Italy. We when we have an energy price lower than the fossil ones. The auction are around 70, 80 euros per megawatt hour, compared with the PUN, the national energy price, that is much higher in the last years. So the renewables could help also in this direction. Of course, as a Italian Wind Energy Association, we are working hard for speeding up the procedures for getting the authorization in order to let that the well the virtual the virtuous projects can be funded, can be put in exercise as soon as possible.
You mentioned that there are auctions, so that is probably now for onshore wind, and you said that the results are something like 7 to 8 cents per kilowatt hour, which is 7 to 80 euros per megawatt hour. So how does that work? So the investors, they develop a project and then they participate in the auctions. Is there a defined market volume then that is available every year?
Yeah, there is a contingent of some megawatt that will be opened in any auction. Now we are waiting for the final publication of the so-called DM FRX, where we can have the auction from here to the next 3 years, more or less. And it seems that they are allocating totally 16 gigawatt of wind power or of auctions for wind. So it's a very interesting number that is also coherent with the numbers that the ANEV, the association, gave to the policymakers. So they know that the potentiality, we have the enough potentialities for this number of gigawatt.
16 gigawatt. That is quite a lot more than what you have.
16.
16, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
16, 1 6 gigawatt. That's quite a lot more than what you have at the
Yeah.
moment. And that will be in the next like 4 years, is what you said until 2030.
Yeah, no, mainly until 28. Depends on where, if we can have a first auction this year in 2026,
Mm.
then we have other 2 or 3 years for the auction. Then, of course, we will have time from the auctions to the wind farming exercise.
Mm.
One point is winning an auction, another one is put the wind farming exercise.
Yes, we know that not in all countries all projects are at the end also built, as we now hear from sometimes the governments, like in the US, are paying not to build them. But that is a quite substantial increase in the near future. There's a very then really exciting market in Italy in the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you mentioned that for offshore wind, you said that those auctions, I heard you earlier saying that has not yet been defined. How much of that would be offshore?
Sorry, how much of the?
How much of these 16 gigawatt would be for offshore wind?
No, these one are all for onshore.
Oh,
This
wow. Okay.
16 or for offshore, on onshore.
Hmm.
The one for offshore, we have 2.1 gigawatt allocated with the DM2, but we still don't have any auction.
Hmm.
There is the total foreseen power is 2.6, 2.1 gigawatt, and 185 euros per megawatt hour.
Okay, that is substantially more. And when do you expect this to be built? I mean, let's now speak from the end. So you expect that will probably then take longer than those 3, 4 years that you need for an onshore project.
Of course, as I said before, the offshore wind sector is quite promising in Italy because we have the potentialities, but on the other hand, we have to be realistic and we need still some years for giving to let that this sector can give a significant contribution to our energy system. So it's difficult that we can have a significant power installed and producing energy by 2030. Of course, we all hope that we will have some of the projects that are ongoing that they can be operative as soon as possible because they are all very interesting, very important, and well prepared from the developers.
Are those developers the same companies that are also involved in the onshore wind, or are these different companies? I mean, you need quite different know-how. You need vessels suddenly that need to be
Yeah,
probably maybe built even for Italy.
yeah, they are mainly different. And then there is all the problems of hard port infrastructure that has to be
Mm.
considered for our country. So it's a very challenging but promising sector.
Mm. So that is really internationally then also something very interesting, and I'm sure that many also companies that may not yet have be active in Italy will have an eye on the Italian market. So what do you see then? I mean, we are already talking about these most promising prospects that you have. Obviously, onshore wind will be the main pillar for the years to come.
Yeah, the onshore, both of the technologies are will be pillars in our country with different times, different costs. Of course, the onshore wind has a higher maturity. The floaters, the floating one has a lower maturity, but we have to invest and for in this technology to let the prices go down as it happened in any technology that is carrying out its uh, procedures, its way. That is what happened in any renewables. We have seen the same in PV, in wind, and of course, we will have the same decrease also for offshore technology.
And when we talk about the supply chain, maybe when we talk about you mentioned offshore wind could be it's technically some ways how to do it less mature. So there is an opportunity also for Italian companies to get into this and develop the know-how. How is the Italian industry so far part of it? Because the manufacturers you've mentioned so far, they are from other European countries. No, you mentioned Vestas, Enercon, and maybe from US. How is the Italian industry? How is the part of the supply chain?
Yeah, the Italian industry is ready to give their contribution to this sector. We developed this year a significant research study joined with Sapienza University team for
Mhm.
ANEV about the potentialities of the floating offshore wind energy sector in Italy
Mhm.
and in terms of number of employees, in terms of economic revenue and costs and LCOE and many economic and technical factors, but mainly focused on the um, social and professional um, outputs related with this sector. So we have seen that we can have a good challenge, a good opportunity for creating new jobs, new positions, new place of works, especially in the southern regions of Italy that are the ones with higher unemployment. So we have seen that we can play a role as Mediterranean offshore wind energy hub, looking also at the infrastructure we have, that of course are peculiar of our country. So we have different situation, for example, compared with the harbor in French or in other Mediterranean countries that have maybe more spaces than us. But on the other hand, we can play a role for trying to create new models of developing offshore wind projects in Italy. So this is public research that it can be easily downloadable in the ANEV website.
Hmm. So that's a good point. ANEF website, anef.it. That's the website that you have. If someone
No,
wants to.
.org.
ORG, anef.org. Sorry, that anef.org. So if you want to get more information, of course, we will link this, but then you can go to that website. So you have a very exciting position at the moment, no? With these two roles that you have, because working on the technology on the one side and then making sure the regulatory framework is in place. Now, when we now look at the overall, the bigger picture, we've already spoken about that Italy does not have major fossil resources, so this current oil crisis is having an impact. The gas crisis that has an impact on many European countries is also playing an important role. And renewables are growing. Probably there is consensus that renewables are the future. Now, we looked recently, of course, last year there was this blackout in Spain. Some tried to blame renewables. We know now that it's not caused by renewables. We had early May, we had, especially in Germany, in Central Europe, a lot of, especially generation from PV, so that the spot market prices went even into very negative. So these are challenges that show us that the whole system is not yet prepared, of course, for a very high share of renewables, but that means we need to prepare for it. How these prospects in Italy? Are you already preparing for this full, almost 100% renewable energy supply? I mean, that means you've touched a bit the grid connection, but storage capacities are playing a role. Batteries are growing in many countries. Is there something like a strategy or a plan for Italy where wind will be a pillar? How are these prospects?
There are different studies, mainly at the research level, that pinpoint the challenges of this renewable energy transition and decarbonization of our systems in Italy. And we have seen that is possible. And of course, also our government, looking also at the European directive, has to follow this line. On the other hand, we see that we can do much more than we did. Also after the current situation now with the conflict in Ukraine, but also looking at the situation in the Middle in Iran, in the other countries of the Middle East. So, of course, Italy on one hand is trying to speed up the procedures for renewables. We have many projects that are blocked at the presidents of the ministry because they received green light from the Ministry of Environment, but negative answer from the Ministry of Culture. So the
Mhm.
presidents of the ministry could easily unblock these procedures to have a much more gigawatt of wind, but also solar projects that can be put in exercise as soon as possible. On the other hand, we have seen that our government is moved from new contracts for with different countries to have a new uh, gas, fossil fuels, mainly gas contracts. And that is no, from our point of view, we don't need to solve the problems with other dependence from different countries, because we have
Mm,
seen that if we continue to be dependent from third countries, we will never solve the project of
mm,
energy independence, of climate crisis, and also energy security of supply. That's the point. We have the resource, as you see at the beginning of, as you say, at the beginning of our discussion, that you say that we have solar and wind, so we can optimize our production until higher percentage of renewables to achieve the climate neutrality by 2050. That's important. Of course, to reach a climate neutrality, we need to maximize the expansion of solar and wind. We need, as I
mm,
said, the electrification of transport and heating. Of course, also energy efficiency play an important role at any level. Storages, batteries, pumping storages, power to X, hydrogen, other kind of technologies, the digitalization of the grids, in order to have also a progressive fossil fuel phase out. But that is absolutely achievable. That's the point. And Terna worked very well in the last years to integrate the grid for to be ready for this transition.
Yeah, excellent. I think that was already kind of summarizing the future, what's going to happen in let's say after 2030 for sure. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. On the one hand, we hear that there are really excellent prospects in the short-term future for wind power, but also those challenges which are there, they can be overcome. Probably you have enough work to do for the next years to come. I wish you a lot of success for this way towards I think it's indeed important what you said, energy independent also country. All the very best. Thank you very much for your time now. And I'm sure that our audience will find it very insightful to listen to what you said. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you again, Stefan, for inviting me, and goodbye.